Welcome to our exploration of some of the most controversial and impactful documentaries ever made. In this video, we'll delve into films that have not only sparked conversations, but have also faced bans and censorship. From exposing the harsh realities of mental health institutions to uncovering government secrets and questioning societal norms, these documentaries have left an indelible mark on history. Titicut Follies, 1967. In 1967, film director Frederick Wiseman decided to create a brutally honest documentary about a hospital for the criminally insane, thinking it would make a compelling film. Titicut Follies pulls back the curtain on the harsh realities of life in the Bridgewater institution, showing inmates being mistreated, humiliated, and living under inhumane conditions. Scenes include patients being force-fed in a manner less gentle than trying to get a cat to take a pill, and naked men treated with less dignity than furniture being shuffled around. When it was released, Titicut Follies caused a major stir because it exposed more than just the patient's plight. It exposed a system that was profoundly broken. The government quickly banned the film, citing the protection of patients' privacy. The ban lasted for years, but when it was finally lifted in 1991, Titicut Follies was hailed as a groundbreaking piece of cinema verite. It sparked discussions about mental health treatment and patients' rights, proving that sometimes the films that make us most uncomfortable are the ones we need to see the most. Fahrenheit 9/11, 2004. Just imagine diving into a pool labeled shallow politics only to find out it's actually deep and filled with sharks, and you've got a meat necklace on. That's kind of what Michael Moore did with Fahrenheit 9/11. He didn't just stir the pot, he pretty much flipped it over and set it on fire. The film kicks off by questioning the legitimacy of President George W. Bush's victory in the 2000 U.S. Bush family's business connections with the bin Laden family and other Saudi Arabian elites, which Moore suggests influenced U.S. The documentary scrutinizes the U.S. President Bush continuing to read My Pet Goat to schoolchildren as the attacks unfolded. The controversy started even before the film hit theaters, because Disney, the parent company of Miramax, the original distributor, decided they didn't want to touch this hot potato with a 10-foot pole. However, Moore found other distributors, and the film went on to become the highest-grossing documentary of all time, proving once again that nothing sells tickets like controversy. While not officially banned, Fahrenheit 9/11 faced more hurdles than an Olympic track star. Some theater chains refused to show it, treating the film like it had cinematic cooties. Conservative groups tried to block its advertising, apparently forgetting that in America you can advertise everything from miracle hair growth formulas to bacon-flavored soda. The Killing Fields of Sri Lanka, 2013. Released in 2013, this film is the cinematic equivalent of poking a hornet's nest with a stick, if the hornet's nest were an entire government and the stick was a camera. The documentary, directed by Callum McRae, looks hard at the final months of the Sri Lankan Civil War in 2009. It particularly highlights the intense and brutal shelling of civilians, the execution of prisoners, and other war crimes. No Fire Zone is essentially the vacation from hell, only no one on this trip had packed their bags for fun. The documentary uses real footage, including videos taken on the ground during the conflict, to paint a vivid and distressing picture of the human rights violations and suffering endured by the Tamil civilians trapped in the war zone. Of course, the Sri Lankan government called it propaganda and tried to sweep this film under the rug faster than a guilty kid hides broken vase pieces. In some countries, screening this film was riskier than playing Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun. Malaysia banned it outright, probably thinking, if we can't see it, it didn't happen. However, the film still won several awards and was even nominated for an international Emmy. Overall, the film's impact was felt far beyond the camera. The Cove, 2009. We can all agree that nobody ever wants their dirty laundry exposed, especially if said dirty laundry has to do with your country hunting and killing dolphins. The Cove is a film directed by Louis C. Hoyos that focuses on the annual dolphin hunt in Taiji, Japan. The movie was structured like a heist film, where the good guys, activists and filmmakers, planned a daring mission to uncover the bad stuff happening in Taiji's hidden corners. They used underwater microphones and high-definition cameras disguised as rocks. The footage they captured was more shocking than finding out your cat's been leading a double life as a secret agent. We're talking about dolphin slaughtering that would make even the most hardened sushi chef consider a career change to tofu sculpting. It's the kind of film that'll make you think twice about that tuna sandwich you're eating. Well, Japan called it Western propaganda and accused the movie of being culturally insensitive. However, all their attempts to suppress the film were about as effective as trying to empty the ocean with a teaspoon. The film significantly impacted public awareness and policy regarding marine conservation and the global dolphin trade. It won an Academy Award for Best Documentary Feature and sparked international campaigns to end dolphin hunting. The Act of Killing, 2012. Just picture asking a bunch of retired villains from a dark chapter in history to recreate their crimes for the camera, but as if they were filming a movie about their lives. That's the chilling premise of The Act of Killing. This film takes a unique and controversial approach to exploring the mass killings in Indonesia during the mid-1960s, focusing not on the victims but on the perpetrators. Former Indonesian death squad leaders were asked to reenact their past atrocities in the style of various film genres they admire, such as gangster films and musicals. The killers did so proudly and without remorse, often with a chilling detachment and even a touch of glee. The documentary not only aired Indonesia's dirty laundry, it took it to the dry cleaners, held it up in bright lights, and charged admission for the spectacle. For many Indonesians, this was seen as a deeply unsettling public display of what many considered private national shame. By having the perpetrators reenact their crimes, the film didn't just document the killings. It dove headfirst into the minds of those who carried them out, turning a mirror on society in a way that many found too direct and too raw. Although the Indonesian government did not officially ban it at the national level, the screenings were often held in secret and underground venues to avoid attracting attention from authorities and paramilitary groups. Zeitgeist, 2007. This documentary is sort of like that one friend at a party who's always eager to tell you about conspiracy theories. You know, the one who brings up things like the Illuminati while you're just trying to enjoy your snacks. The movie, directed by Peter Joseph, covers a wide array of topics all wrapped up in a blanket of skepticism and conspiracy. One of the film's main claims is that major world religions, particularly Christianity, are based on ancient astrological myths. Basically, it's like telling a room full of Christmas enthusiasts that Santa Claus is just an ancient sun god. Well, of course, many found this idea deeply offensive, especially in countries where religion is woven into the fabric of society. Imagine going to your grandma's house for Christmas dinner and announcing, "By the way, Jesus is just a recycled myth." You might be banned from the next family gathering. Well, that's sort of what happened with Zeitgeist. This film was banned in Turkey, the entire Middle East, and China. Given that the film critiques religion heavily, and Turkey is a country with a significant Muslim population, it's like the government saw this as someone lighting a match near a powder keg. They were worried it could incite unrest and offend religious sensibilities. The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes, 1971. The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes is not your typical popcorn flick, and it's definitely not something you'd want to watch during dinner. This 32-minute silent film is as raw and unfiltered as it gets and is directed by avant-garde filmmaker Stan Brakhage. The title, which translates from Latin as autopsy, gives you a pretty clear hint about what the movie was all about, which is literally witnessing the stark reality of human mortality up close and personal in a Pittsburgh morgue. To put it bluntly, The Act of Seeing with One's Own Eyes is a documentary about autopsies, but it's not a documentary in the conventional sense. There's no narration, no interviews, no explanatory text, just footage, visceral, raw, unflinching footage of autopsies being performed. The camera doesn't shy away from anything. You see bodies being dissected, organs being removed, and the physical reality of death laid bare in a way that's rarely shown on film. If most films try to comfort or entertain, Breakage's work does the opposite. It confronts you with the inevitable fact of mortality, forcing you to truly understand what it means to be a living, breathing being destined to one day die. It's kind of like taking off your rose-colored glasses and seeing the world in all its harsh, unforgiving truth, except in this case, it's a morgue, and the truth involves scalpels and cadavers. Because of its graphic nature, the film was never widely released and is rarely shown in public, even in the world of art and avant-garde cinema, where pushing boundaries is often the point. This film is in a category of its own. It's the kind of movie you might only watch in a film studies class, and even then it's usually preceded by a serious content warning. The War Game, 1965. This documentary is the type of film that doesn't just make you think. It makes you shiver in your boots, reconsider life choices, and maybe even question whether building a bomb shelter in your backyard is a good idea. Now, this BBC-produced film is a chilling mockumentary-style depiction of what a nuclear war and its aftermath might look like in Britain. And best believe it's not the kind of thing you'd want to watch as a bedtime story. The film, directed by Peter Watkins, presents a terrifyingly realistic scenario of what would happen if Britain were to experience a nuclear attack during the Cold War. Using a mix of documentary techniques and fictional narrative, you would literally see the harrowing events leading up to and following a nuclear strike on the town of Rochester, Kent. But it's not just the explosion that's terrifying, it's what comes after. The film shows the collapse of social order, the overwhelming strain on emergency services, and the grim reality of radiation sickness. It's like someone took all the most horrifying parts of a dystopian novel, removed any glimmer of hope, and put it on film. Well, this movie got banned by the British government because it was not exactly the kind of content you want to broadcast if you're trying to maintain public morale. The film was deemed so disturbing and potentially panic-inducing that it was pulled from the TV schedule before it could even air. The official line was that the film was simply too horrifying for television, and it's easy to see why. The Soviet Story, 2008. The Soviets and the Nazis have always had a very disturbing, dark image since the beginning of time. Now just imagine a film that truly dives deep into the core of this image to shine a bright light on their worst crimes. This movie, which Latvian filmmaker Edvin Snor directed, is a powerful indictment of Soviet atrocities, focusing on the atrocities committed by the Soviet regime, particularly under Joseph Stalin. It sheds light on events such as the Holodomor, which was the man-made famine in Ukraine, the mass executions during the Purge, the forced deportations, the gulags, and the Katyn massacre, where the Soviet secret police murdered thousands of Polish officers. One of the more controversial aspects of the documentary is its claim that the Soviets and Nazis had a shared ideological foundation rooted in the desire to control and eliminate certain populations. Well, as expected, the film was heavily criticized in Russia and labeled as anti-Russian propaganda. Many Russians and some historians accused the film of being biased, oversimplified, and inflammatory, arguing that it distorted history and unfairly equated the Soviet Union with Nazi Germany. It was never shown on state-controlled media and was harshly condemned by government officials and media outlets. In some cases, there were efforts to prevent the film from being shown at screenings in Russia and in Russian-speaking regions of other countries. Under the Sun, 2015. Russian director Vitaly Mansky thought he'd hit the jackpot when North Korea invited him to make a film about a typical family in Pyongyang. Little did the North Korean government know they just invited a fox into their carefully constructed henhouse of propaganda. The plan was simple. North Korea would script every scene, direct every shot, and create a picture-perfect image of life in the workers' paradise. The film shows the typical family's daughter, Zinmi, being coached on how to smile, what to say, and even how to eat her kimchi more joyfully. It was like The Truman Show, but with more kimchi and fewer boats crashing into walls. But Mansky, the clever cookie he is, had an ace up his sleeve, or rather a camera up his tripod. He kept the cameras rolling between takes, capturing the behind-the-scenes of this carefully choreographed charade. It's like catching your cat plotting world domination when they think you're not looking. This showed the reality of the people living in North Korea and how the government managed every single thing. When North Korea realized what Mansky had done, they demanded that the footage be destroyed, but Mansky had already smuggled it out of the country. The documentary premiered at the 2015 Jilava International Documentary Film Festival in the Czech Republic, far from the reach of North Korean censors. If you want to know more about how bad the cybersecurity issues are currently, then you should join our Discord server. Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe, 2006. Vaxxed, From Cover-Up to Catastrophe is like that one dinner guest who shows up uninvited, eats all the appetizers, and then drops a conspiracy theory bomb right in the middle of your cozy meal. The film, directed by Andrew Wakefield, is buried balls deep in controversy because it promotes the widely debunked claim that vaccines, particularly the MMR, measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, are linked to autism. The film presents the massive narrative that the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, covered up data that supposedly showed a link between the MMR vaccine and autism. Wakefield claims that vaccines are causing a health catastrophe and that the government is hiding this from the public. Well, when the movie came out, it wasn't exactly given a warm welcome by the scientific community or health organizations because the film is chock full of misinformation, and all the claims have been thoroughly debunked by scientists, doctors, and just about every reputable health organization out there. The worst is that the guy who is even spreading this expletive story about vaccines had already lost his medical license because of a paper he wrote in 1998. It was revealed that his research was full of ethical flaws and misinformation. Anyways, Vaxxed was banned and removed from various streaming services and theaters that didn't want to contribute to the spread of dangerous misinformation. 0 days, 2016. It's definitely not news how disruptive a computer virus can be once it gets into your system. It could destroy your entire life if you do not take the necessary steps to fix it. Now imagine a film that exposes a software virus that would not only destroy and steal your data, but also physically destroy its target. This film, directed by Alex Gibney, focuses on Stuxnet, a malicious computer worm that's more complex than a Rubik's Cube. This little piece of malware was apparently created by the US-Israel to sabotage Iran's nuclear program. Talk about taking slide into their DMs to a whole new level. The documentary does a great job of breaking down how Stuxnet works, even for those of us who can't tell a computer virus from a sinus virus. It explains that Stuxnet was not just any malware. It was designed to subtly manipulate industrial control systems that manage everything from water treatment facilities to power plants. Gibney interviewed NSA whistleblowers and cybersecurity experts and even created a CGI composite character to represent multiple anonymous sources. The film exposes the potential consequences of cyber weapons, because once a cyber weapon like Stuxnet is out there, it can be reverse-engineered, replicated, and turned back on its creators. It paints a picture of a future where wars are fought with keyboards instead of guns, and the biggest threat to national security might be a pimply teenager in his parents' basement.